Oh, these are the paying sponsors for the show. If you want to sponsor the show, you can contact me for more information. Shoot me an email at neveragainstudio@gmail.com. Finishers MMA. 3761 Nicholas Street, Easton, PA. If you don't know who these guys are by now, how dare you? They do a show with me called Now We Go. Zach and J.M. Holland run 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Bethlehem. They have another school in Allentown, and that's John Thor Blank. These guys are elite black belts in the game. They are doing things no one else is doing in the area. If you're looking for self-defense, if you're looking to get in shape, if you're looking to just get your life back on track, Jiu-Jitsu is for you. Check them out. You can find information on them at finishersmma.com. Zach and JM are the teachers over at the Bethlehem School. At Finishers MMA is for all of their social media. And you can check out Now We Go, which is a podcast we do every Monday. But those guys sponsor the show, and they're beasts. Go check out finishersmma.com. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing is a one-stop shop for all of your plumbing needs. You can reach them at allvalleyrooter.net, or you can call them at 610-762-1656. They are fully registered, fully insured, and they have a 1-year parts labor guarantee. It is the plumber that we use for the show. Any problems that we've had down here in the studio, he's working on some projects for me now. He's stopped by several times. He's working on the studio above this studio. I personally put my guarantee on him. He's a close friend of mine. We grew up together. He told me the story about how he grew this business, and I'm impressed with Jared, and he does really good work. So if you need a plumber, do me a favor, do Jared a favor, call him. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing, 24-hour service. The number again is 610-762-1656, and you can get all the information you need at allvalleyrooter.net. And his social media is at All Valley Rooter on Facebook and Instagram. Rips Auto Detail. If you don't know who Rips is at this point, you are a first-time listener, but that's okay. We're going to tell you all about him right now. Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. Rips, he's the best. He's the best in the area. Highline paint correction, ceramic coating, and you can check out all of his work online. The best place to follow him is on Instagram at Rips Auto Detail. His daily posts of what he's doing over there. If you need your car restored, a boat restored, a plane restored, I don't care what you need restored, he will fix it. I've seen the guy bring things back from the dead. I've seen him work on clients' cars that are just continually bringing them in to get kept up with. He has a ton of different packages, and he can find one for you. So that's Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. You can follow him at Rips Auto Detail, and you can get a hold of him through there as well. If you go onto his social media, it's going to have his number and further information on how to get to him. I'm telling you, follow the social media. Give him a follow, show him some love, and check out what he's doing. He's high level, and he's one of our favorites over at the show. So check him out. Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives. They are high-end custom knives made and forged from scratch. Luke Delmeyer, friend of the show, out of Hellertown, Pennsylvania. He offers bladesmithing, farrier services, and blacksmithing as well. You can take classes over there. That is the thing that I push. I have a couple people that went over there, and you take a class and you learn how to make the knife. You start from step one all the way to the end, and when you're done with the class, you're walking away with your own custom knife that you made. The classes fill up pretty fast, so I need you to go over there and check it out. You can get all the information on classes and his custom knives on www.lukedelmeyer.com. Custom knives, classes, and more. Check him out. Follow him at Luke Delmeyer. Instagram's where it's at. All of his stuff's on there. He's got videos. He's forging constantly. He's been on some TV shows, and he's a friend of the show. So go check him out. It's Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives, farrier, bladesmith, blacksmith. 5 and Dime Easton. local skate shop in Easton, Pennsylvania, 140 Center Northampton Street, Easton, PA. You can call the shop at 610-393-7448. They carry a lot of local brands, and they carry Fucked as well. They're the only ones that actually are allowed to sell the Fucked clothing line in store. So if you're one of those guys looking for stuff you can't grab anywhere else and some custom things, it's in that shop. I've worked with these guys. We've had them on the podcast. It's awesome seeing the Easton skate scene have their own store. The store itself, it's super cool. It's skater friendly, skater owned, and you got to go in and check it out for yourself. Then that's 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and check out the sales they got going on. Like I said, a lot of local stuff in there. We're going to collab on some stuff. I'm really glad to have them as a sponsor. It's awesome to see the skate scene in Easton have their own spot. So take my word, you got to go in, got to check it out. You can also check them out online. So it is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and their number is 610-393-7448. Check them out. Give them a follow at 5 and Dime Easton on all social media platforms. BTG Blasting. Back to Glory Blasting. Why is it called that? Because this guy's bringing stuff back from the dead. Old decks, siding, anything you need. You got a business. He does commercial and residential pressure washing. This guy's got the equipment to give you the best look possible. You got a little one at home, it ain't doing it. He's bringing it all over. He's bringing it over, and he's knocking everything down, knocking the mold down, the dirt down. I've seen his work. He's done stuff at my parents' house, and he also just started doing virus disinfection. So if you have a business and you need it disinfected because of the coronavirus and all that, he has taken classes and is completely certified. He is now doing this studio monthly, and I can't thank him enough. I have guests that worry about things going on down here. We are now fully disinfected, and that's because of Back to Glory Blasting. It's fully insured, and it's commercial and residential pressure washing and virus disinfection at this time. You can reach him at 484-241-1711. You can also email him at btgblasting@gmail.com. Check him out. If you guys need any projects done, it's still summertime. You can get your decks redone, your siding redone. You got a party coming up, hit him up. If you got an office, you run in a kitchen, I know a ton of people that own kitchens, you can have it disinfected monthly for a fee, and he comes out and does it monthly. So you can, it's take all your worries away and just get this stuff done for the disinfectant, especially, the way times are now. So that's BTG Blasting, and we thank him for being a sponsor. Glenn Honan, Legacy Landscaping. If you don't know this name, you are not from the area. Glenn is a really good friend of mine, and he just got a new landscaping company back up. We did some apparel for him, and it's Legacy Landscaping. Glenn is the best in the area for landscaping. He's been doing it almost his entire life. I mean, before I was doing any of this, I worked for Glenn, and what he's doing now, it's awesome. It's awesome to see him back in action getting landscaping done, but he can cover all of your landscaping needs. You can follow him at Legacy Landscape, and you can reach them at 610-533-3669. Any questions you have with outside projects, whether you want to do hardscaping or you're looking to put in a pond, put some boulders out in the backyard, have some steps coming up, this guy can handle it all and more. There is not one thing that they're afraid to tackle, so you can reach them at 610-533-3669. What else can I say? He's a good friend of the show, and thanks for being a sponsor. Crawlspacerepairs.com. This is obviously for crawlspace repairs. What's crawlspace repairs? It's all the things that you don't want to do at your home, and you should hire them to do it. They are a family-run business, and they have over 120 years experience. They are specialized in crawlspace repair, encapsulation, and waterproofing. They provide exceptional workmanship and the highest quality materials. They have highly skilled technicians. They are also bonded and fully insured. They always provide free estimates and lifetime warranty for all waterproofing jobs. You can ask about their price match as well. So when you do that, you're going to need to call 1-570-476-5866. You can also go directly to their website, which is crawlspacerepairs.com. If you have any crawl space repair needs, please contact them. 1-570-476-5866. That's crawlspacerepairs.com. Good enough, I think. Timer set. Never Again Radio. Let's see, 57, then it'll be 58. 59. Gary, how the hell are you? I've been working on new intros.
Yeah, I like that.
I called Chris yesterday. I said, "How are you, you beautiful son of a bitch?"
That is perfect.
I'm just tired of doing the same thing. I still don't know how to close the show out. Now it's just me going, I'm uncomfortable, and goodbye, and then I push the mic forward.
That sounds good. Yeah, doing well, man.
I've known you for way too long, my friend. Notre Dame High School. We had the Frankie Cup. Do you remember gym class when NAR would let us do whatever the fuck we wanted?
I do.
We played tackle soccer.
I do.
I still talk to people about that. It was, I don't know if he thought that like we needed to blow off steam or what that was about, but he literally just like let us, because it got super aggressive in tackle. Because what did we do first? Was it the soccer?
We did tackle soccer first, I believe, before we got into the hockey arena.
And then we did football for a little bit where he was kind of letting us almost tackle. And then I think like Strobel got hurt and it was all over.
Yeah, it got, and then hockey, of course.
Oh, that was so much fun. I explained that to people too, where I'm like, yo, they just were like, you could either go do homework or find something to do.
Yeah.
And then the big thing was you had to change.
You did have to change.
Like, I was like, what?
Out of our wonderful uniforms.
So I remember we would change, and I don't remember how that started, where I think we would just go down to the annex to get away from the teachers, but it wasn't like there was anyone there. And then we would fuck around in the annex, and I don't know if it was Masseri or how we started playing hockey. And then I told everyone that, like, do you remember when we put the wrestling mats up against the fucking wall, and then we could check?
I do. That was when it got really, really aggressive.
Yeah, I got ringworm from the wrestling mat because somebody checked me into it, and then I didn't even know, and Sapinski came up to me and he's like, you got ringworm on your neck. I didn't wrestle. I didn't know what ringworm was. I was like, what are you talking about?
It was always surprising how aggressive it got, and then we would just at the end of gym just go back to everybody's cool,
everyone was
but
like
we're
ready to
screaming
kill
at each other, like cursing.
Because we were bringing in our own hockey sticks because it got like super serious and competitive, which was awesome.
It did get pretty competitive.
The only reason I looked forward to going to school was to play hockey.
Was that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I still have the picture over there. It's down there on the bottom of the shelf.
I hate that picture, but
it's so good. I keep forgetting to send it to Brant. He's like, take a picture of it.
I believe I'm wearing a South Park t-shirt in that picture.
Dude, South Park's still going.
Just 21, we graduated what are we on, 21 years ago?
I don't know. Do you ever go to the class reunions?
I have not.
I went to one. And I think like Masseri tried to hit somebody with a pool stick, and then that was the last one we went to. It was a blast. It was funny watching that.
There you go.
It was like open bar.
That'll do it.
And then after we graduated and whatnot, everybody kind of went their own ways. And then I don't remember how I started following you, or if I just started following you because I saw somebody liked it, or Draws might have shared something. And then I just started seeing you are obsessed with running.
I am obsessed with running.
When it's like not like, hell yeah, he likes to run, like, because then the more I saw it, I was like, I think I can actually get an interview out of this kid, because then that became appealing to me, and I was just like, because I started running when I quit drinking at Cherry Hill, and I was doing 8 miles a day, and then it was every day 8 miles, and it was like it was something I had to do. So now when I see people running long distance or just running all the time like that, I connect to it and kind of like, oh yeah, there's a reason why you're doing it that much. How the fuck did you even get into running that much?
Wow, that's a terrific question. It actually started, which is funny. I always tell this story, right? My mother was the cross country coach at OLPH. Masseri was on my team in like 5th grade. And she was our first coach, and she used to take Drew, Kyle, and I, my younger brothers, to the Freedom High School track during the summer to keep us out of trouble, and she would just
run,
drill instructor type run. Like we would do sprints, and I always kind of just gravitated towards the consistency of it. And as you said, I think as I got older, the stress relief from it, you know, it's a good chance to get away from whatever you've got going on, and kind of it's really kind of a euphemism for just one foot in front of the other, and taking on giant challenges.
It really is. I don't know if you do it, but when I started Never Again and was doing those runs, I would run by my parents' house, and I would go on the back roads in Bushkill. And I knew I was like, you got to just run. You got to go run. I just knew, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to meetings or anything, and I was just like, run. I don't even know how I started getting into running. I just started running.
Yep.
And then once I started doing that, I'd always listen to music. I love listening to music when I run, and I would start cleaning out the cluster. So there'd be like shit all over my brain. And I just did it again today. And I'll start, once you hit a certain point, I can start thinking and running at the same time. And now it's just like a unison thing. And then I start moving the shit around in my head to where it needs to be in order for me to get to my destination. So a lot of like the t-shirts I created in the very beginning were during runs. And then I get back and would like write it down. I feel like there's such a creative zone. There's so many layers to what happens when you hit specific points of running. And one of them is I get to unclutter, and it becomes an environment to create like super creative stuff.
100%, man. I think you nailed it. There's a famous quote, and you know from following me that I'm all about the quotes, that says if you have a problem and you go for a 4-hour run and you don't have the solution to that problem, you're not fucking getting the solution to that problem.
Yeah. It's the truth.
Because it does have that clearing ability where you can kind of, once when you start out a run, you kind of have that stuff weighing on you, and as you find your rhythm, and as you said, listen to music, or even those of us that don't, because I bounce.
So do I.
In between.
Sometimes I won't like the loud noise, and I want the quiet of like Jacobsburg or something.
And then you can then you get in your rhythm as you get further along, and you're kind of like, okay, well, what am I working on that I have to work through? And sometimes you're not even thinking about it, but it pops in your head, and you're like, I think I have this figured out now.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to think when I don't know what it is about it, but there's moments where there's just such clarity, and then like I guess it's because your body's moving, so that's the distraction of your mind, and then when you focus, you're able to focus on exactly what you want to with no distractions at all.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just like what you said, it's one foot in the other, and then when I do it, like I went twice today, and the second time I went by myself, which is a totally different than going with other people. But when I went the second time, like I really just laid out an exact plan of what I wanted to do. And then I'm like, okay, there it is. And like, I'll grab it and be like, so glad I went for a run.
Yeah, I agree. I think trail running too is very different as we get into this of road running versus trail, because on trail, your mind has to kind of be occupied with what you're doing with your feet and things like that. So you either don't step on a snake or
snakes,
or trip and fall on your face in the middle of Jacobsburg, which really is terrible. But there's this whole other dynamic that your brain is so occupied with what you're doing that clarity is able to come in.
I get it on mountain biking, but mountain biking is a little bit more dangerous as far as like having to pay attention. I get like when I do my long mountain bike stuff, or like the summer I did mountain biking, it's an escape, where running I feel is more of a focused like thought breakdown. Like you can escape with running as well, because a lot of times when I'll get to a point where like I don't need to work stuff out, and then you're just running to run, and then that's when I also enjoy a long run, because you're just exercise, and then it's just the release. And I don't know, there were so many things I got out of it, it's hard to even describe the amount of layers of what comes out of even running in general, because the release on its own, that was the biggest thing for me, because I had so much pent up energy at the time. And now it's like I look at it and I'm like, oh, if I'm stressed, like, oh, I'll just do like, and what's crazy to me is there's some people who hate cardio and like hate running, and I'm like, you're nuts. It's the biggest dump out of everything.
It is.
And Bill Lohr will give me shit and be like, no, it's weightlifting.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
And I'm sure his weightlifting's a bigger dump out than running.
Yeah,
but
I always love when he comments like, oh, my knees hurt just thinking about what you're doing. I'm like, all right, Bill, relax.
My knees are fucked though. I definitely can't do as much as I used to in the past, but I just limit myself now to what I can do.
Yeah, you just adapt, and I think everyone kind of goes through that too. I mean, you talked about how long we know each other. we're getting older, Mike. So
I'm 40.
unfortunately, and I'm not far behind you, as you know. So unfortunately, I started to see some of that. Well, and I put a lot of miles on this car.
Yeah.
So I've starting to see some of that stuff as well. With
When
my
did you
knees
start?
and-
When did you start picking it up to a point where you were just noticing that you were running? Because I mean, you weren't running like this in high school, were you?
I wasn't. I ran on the track team
Yeah.
for a little bit, but nothing serious. I mean, I think I had other things on my mind at that point, but it wasn't until I actually had the kids and was working that I started doing it again as that stress relief, as you said. And then I'm also probably reference from Frankie Cup. Unfortunately, I'm a highly competitive person, so when I started to kind of get that stress relief, it started to become, okay, Gary, like now you have a time that you've run 3 miles, like let's see if you can beat that. And then I started racing, which gets very addictive as well. Of, now it's go time. Now I don't just want to beat my time. I want to beat everybody who's here as well.
Yeah.
So that's where it became kind of obsessive.
When did you how did you get into racing? Because that's not just something you jump into. Was it just doing like the 5Ks and then talking to people? Because I know like once you start doing like the half marathons and you start getting into stuff like that, you start meeting people who are involved in different assets of like it's so cool because like you can just go do a 5K and like I do the turkey trot or whatever the hell's in Nazareth.
Yeah, pumpkin pie.
Yeah,
Yep.
I go, I do it, and I leave. I don't. But if you could also get involved where you run into people who are like, hey, we do this, we do that, we do this, and then you start picking up people who, if you want to, like you could go deep if you want to go deep, but you can also just kind of hang out by the edge of the pool.
You can do it in layers. To your point, even on the runs, is that you can, as you pointed out. I mean, you meet so many eclectic groups of people that are runners, that you have the serious ones, you have the ones that, like you said, it's just become part of their daily routine, so they have to do it before they go to work, and they're not necessarily racing. I think it's a good mix between, but I started racing as I just started moving up and kind of making it part of my daily routine. It started with an idea of, I had never run a half marathon. I've always, in track cross country, I've always run 5Ks, 10K. I'm taller and thinner, so I'm not really designed for endurance races. But and I started just with this idea of, could I actually go 13.1 miles? Like, it seemed ridiculous for me in the beginning. It was like, do I even want to run that long? Like, it just seems pointless at a certain point. But I did one, and then it, as you know, it spiraled from there. And then it just became part of that mental hurdle of, okay, now I've done 13.1 a couple times. Like, what's next?
It's extremely interesting to push yourself to that, where you look at the number and you're like 13 miles. But then when I did a half, and I think that's like, I remember running and being so obsessed with running that summer where I just started running. And then I remember I went out and I had an iPod. That's how long ago this was. And I went the back roads by my parents' house, and then I went into Morristown, and then I went into Bushkill, and then I went down, and then I noticed my iPod died. And I was just like, okay, we've been running for quite some time. But I kept, like, I hit a stride where I wasn't tired. I wasn't running. Like, and it's weird when you hit those zones where, like, I just started moving, and then I was just like, I'm not tired, and I could probably do this for a while. And then I just kept going and going and going, and then I got to a point where it started to suck. And then, like, I think I had like chafing on my inner thighs, and the last mile was just hamburger, and was me just waddling. And then when I got home, my mom's like, "Oh my God, where were you?" Because I hate taking a phone. Now you can use the iPod. Everything's in one.
Right.
So back then I was like, I'm not carrying, I got an iPod on my arm. I'm not carrying a fucking book bag. So they were going to go look for me because I was gone for so long. Then I mapped it with the car, and I think it was 12.5. And I was like, holy shit, man. Like, that was pretty far. So then when I went to do the half, I'm like, you're doing 8 miles a day and you've done 12. Like, you could definitely do this. But then, like, it was intimidating to get there, like, to be there. There was a lot of people, a lot of nerves. and it's not easy. It was like, I was just like I never understood why they had people cheering, but that helps. And then I was like, they're like, yeah, Mike, and I'm like, I don't know these people, but thank you. And then it kind of all made sense why all that shit goes on.
Yeah,
because from an outsider's perspective, I was just like, what is blocking traffic? What is this horse shit? What are these people doing?
Why are they cheering for a fast parade?
Yeah, and then like when I did one, and what's funny is I went by myself, and then I ended up seeing Draws and Dusty there, and then they were like, "Oh my God, you did this!" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I'll never forget because I went back to I had a tattoo convention that day, and it was my first ever tattoo convention, and the guy was like, I was like, "Hey, I can do this weekend, but I might not be able to be there the whole time." And he's like, well, do you want to do the tattoo convention or do you want to run your half marathon? And I was like, I'll do both. So as soon as I was done, I didn't take a break, went right to my car, changed, got in, drove there. And somebody's like, yo, are you all right? And I'm just like, I don't know. And they're like, what did you just do? And I was like, a half marathon. The guy goes, you have to fucking eat. And like someone had to go get me food because I couldn't stand up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, do you realize how many calories you just burned? And I was like, no. And they're just like, what's wrong with you? And I went into that not knowing anything. I barely trained. I definitely fucked both my knees up because I just didn't stop running.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think as you get into that's kind of the natural progression. Like you don't know, it's the simplest sport that there is. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing. You just kind of go and run. As you pointed out, you find that perfect pace where you feel like you could just run forever. You find that mental space.
You've done this been running that time. Like, what is that mental space? Like, what is that stride that you hit? Like, what is it? Your body hitting on all cylinders? Is it like the perfect formula? Like,
it is. It's different for everybody, but a lot of times what you do is as you run, you fall into that space where it's just you don't know you're doing it sometimes, and you have to have kind of that, just like any sport, golf or basketball. It's got to be your day, right? The humidity could drop massively, and you just feel really good, and you start going one in front of the other. Your body feels fresh, and then you're just falling into that groove where, as you said, you could turn around and be at like 12 miles and be like, oh shit, I didn't even know that I was out here for this long.
It's weird now that I'm seeing the same similarities in hiking, and like how I just told you, I'm like, I want to do 30 miles. Like that's how I was with running. And it's like, I don't know if I'm chasing the feeling of hitting, because we went on a longer hike and we hit halfway, and it usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour, and then my body gets into that thing where it's just like, now it's just a machine, and I'm like, and then I just start thinking, I'm like, this is where I can start really eating up some fucking miles. And then like, I don't know what it is or what I'm chasing in that, but it's like I just keep chasing after that feeling, but you have to just keep going further and further and further and further. And the further you go, the longer it takes to get that feeling. And then now when I see, like, Draws showed me this documentary with these guys who like do these massive races where it's like they're running, like Nat did it for the bike stuff. Where it's like riding. He does the same shit.
Yep.
And it's funny that we're all from the Frankie Company.
It is pretty funny. This is your future, folks. Like this is.
But I feel like it's the competitive nature in all of us, and I feel like a lot of us had Nat played sports and stuff, but Nat's always competitive against himself, and that's how he those rides and all that are like, it's like, so I think there's a similarity in there of we all had that competitive nature, but it was also a solo competitive nature of pushing yourself.
Agreed. And it never stops, right? Because like you said, you challenge yourself, and then it becomes, in running you have two options, right? You can either go faster or farther. Yeah. Those are the two options as you try and hit those milestones. And there are a lot of as you get through and learn some of it, as you were talking about, I mean, there's 50Ks, there's 50 milers. Your body takes a long time to recover from those. So it becomes harder to get that feeling of bliss. Yeah. And obviously while you're doing it, it's a big difference of saying, hey, I ran a fast 5K. I'm proud of it. In 20 minutes I was done. I'm now eating lunch. But if you're like 5 hours into a run and you're still far from where you need to be, you kind of get that mental like, man, this sucks. This is not great.
I think it was mile 10 because I was used to doing 8. And then in the beginning I was like, I'll do a full. I'll do a full all day. And then I got to 10 miles and I was like, I remember like I hit it and they had a Frank Sinatra impersonator, like just singing off to the side. And I was just like, kill me. And it was like a little bit of a hill or something. And I was like, this fucking sucks. It was hard to find a rhythm after 10. I think I ended up doing it, but it was very hard to find that rhythm.
Well, then it becomes mental and running with your heart. Anyone who says, same thing, like, hey, I want to do a full, I've done a couple halves, I want to do a full. The best way of looking at it is, I said, just imagine like finishing your half and realizing that you're turning the corner and you have another half to go.
That's so crazy. What's the furthest you've gone?
So funny story, running in Jacobsburg Park. Draws and I had an idea of we were talking about Bear Mountain, New York, which is the North Face Challenge, is one of the hardest races on the East Coast, and they offer. By then, we were just running halves and fulls, and she had said, I wonder if we can do a 50K, which is 31 miles up the mountain, and we committed right there and said, let's do it. So I've done 2 50Ks of 31.
And that's up a mountain.
A lot of elevation change.
How was that? Suck? Or was it just different?
It's different. I would say, like I was saying before, road running is more competitive, more aggressive, where trail runners are more laid back, kind of like, hey, we're about to go tackle a mountain. Like, it's about getting home. It's not about
getting to the top and
how fast you can get there, or it still is at the top level, obviously, but it's more of an experience. Like, being out and on a mountain all day as you're trying to run and navigate and as well as eat, as you pointed out, because trail running is more of like they call it like a eating competition with some running in it, because the aid stations in road running are more of like, you have Gatorade and like these gels you can take to get. But in trail running, if you run a 50K, there's like pierogies there's Coke, there's pierogies, there's sandwiches, because you're burning so many calories.
So that's why, like, I always see Nat on his posts, like, eating hot dogs and like garbage food, because you're burning so many calories.
You're just
It'd be pointless to do anything like Gatorade in that, because it's not helping you out.
Yeah, you can. I think in ultra running, as you get further along, the sodas, you need the sugars, you need some of that stuff, and even settling your stomach at a certain point, because there's those of us that don't. I'm not a big eater when I run, but you have to out of necessity, because I always joke, when I get into that groove where you said you hit that wall, my father always says, you realize it's your organs shutting down, right? And I was like, yeah, that's
the truth.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So he always kind of joked and was like, dude, you're gonna learn to eat, or you're not gonna be able to run that far.
So what do you choose to eat when you hit like the high long ones?
I will. At this point in my running career, I will eat anything. I do.
I just don't see how you could drink a soda and keep going.
Trust me, I thought the same thing.
But then it's just your body's burning it so fast? Or?
There's nothing better than an ice cold Coke at like mile 27 where you're like... Because
I can't even drink soda down here. I don't even like putting it in mixers anymore.
I don't either. I switched to seltzer, but same thing.
Seltzer.
It's like, I can no longer stomach this. And I think the mental aspect too, you got the caffeine, you get some of that, at 27 where you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore.
Where'd you start picking up the knowledge on what your body is doing while you're running? Is that just something where you started reading running or talking to more people when you're running, or just like, because it gets to a point like with what Nat's doing, like you have to pay attention to what you're doing because you're going too far.
Right. You're not getting in that groove. I think over time it's been experience, a little trial and error. I've done, the famous term in running is bonk. I've hit that wall where you can't go any further because your body's just cramping up, and I've had bad days, and and I always thought, watching sports on TV, like a professional athlete gets a cramp, and I'm like, what a bitch. but running the Via Marathon in September when it was really hot, I got my first like actual cramp and felt like someone stabbed me in the leg, and I was like, it locked up, and I was like, oh my God, this is fucking painful.
Yeah.
And then now I don't complain when I see like LeBron cramp up. I'm like, oh, that's serious shit. That's bad. But you just learn over time, man. I think, and obviously, I think as you get into something like this from the mental side of it, it does become a little obsessive. So I read about running all the time. It is as you said, I have to pay
picking
attention.
up books or like articles? Or?
Yeah, a lot of Runner's World magazine,
Yeah.
Trail Runner magazine. Just kind of getting tips and tricks. I'm blessed to have a fairly eclectic group. I have a track club that we created that I run with. Dustin is a part of that, and my buddy Adam, who is. They're both ridiculously fast, efficient runners. So running with them, you gain a lot of knowledge and you push yourself because they are very, very quick.
Yeah, I always see Dusty running around town. He just doesn't stop.
Yeah, and he eats like, don't follow his nutrition, but he just doesn't care.
No, we were not making fun of him, but we were bitching about him, about how he can like come home and like we went out to eat for Manzo's birthday and he got a double cheeseburger. I think it came with fries. We had wings. I posted all the food and then he ate all of it, like every bit of it. Then he hammered the double cheeseburger and then he was mad because and I was mad too, but I'm fat. He just has a high metabolism. But like, we were like, "Where's dessert?" And like, I was kind of like teetering on like being full, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm good." And then on the hike the next day, Draws was like, "Yeah, like that doesn't affect him. He didn't gain a pound from that." And I'm just like, "Go fuck yourself."
And what
dude.
you probably don't know is that like a day later, he kicked my ass all over the track as well.
So you guys are doing track running as well?
We do mix in some speed work just to, at this point, get faster. I still have a couple, as I said, I think as you get older, my competitive nature hasn't gone away. We still are shooting for times in a lot of the shorter races, and we have to incorporate some track workouts, which are really terrible as you get older as well.
Oh, yeah, everything is terrible.
Everything
when you
is
get older.
Yeah, it's just bad.
When did you guys start getting into like the serious competition like that? When well, actually, what was the first thing that you won and was like got a taste of like hell yeah, like that I was like the best time, and like that feeling probably doesn't go away.
It doesn't actually, and unfortunately, when you are competitive as you get older, it gets harder because you want to run. So I have a couple funny stories about that. I think South Mountain 5K was the first time that I won my age group outright, and no one was really close to me. And I was kind of like, am I the only one here? Like, what just happened?
Like picking up the paperwork.
What just happened here? How many guys are in my age group? Is it just me?
Yeah.
So, and like you said, that feeling doesn't go away. Until your ego kind of bites you. I was in Chicago, and I was running the Chinatown 5K in Chicago, and at mile probably 2.5 of a 5K, some guy came up on me on the side, and we were probably in the top 10, and a lot of back and forth. We ended up sprinting side by side through the corral there, and actually. He broke off and I broke off and I threw up in a garbage can. Like I was pushing myself really, really hard. And we met at the end of the corral and I said, hey, terrific race. You got a lot of stuff. And he's like, dude, I'm 21. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known that because I'm 34. We're not even close to in the same age group. And I just threw up in that trash can over there trying to beat you.
Did you tell him you puked?
I did tell him I puked. And everyone had a good laugh because that's still a thing, man. Pushing yourself so hard that you throw up. I've unfortunately had done that several times.
Yeah.
Not the best scenario.
No, but I mean, if you're trying to push yourself to that point and you're trying to get personal goals and stuff, it's sometimes you push your body harder than what it can do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty telling of just. I have a couple goals, and as I was thinking about coming to talk to you today, I was like, you know what, am I gonna reveal my last 2 goals because they're really tough and I'm old now.
Now you have to.
So I still have 2 goals. So I've run everything that I've wanted to run.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm sure you hit like all the big marathons. Like, what did you want to run?
I definitely wanted to. As I learned more about running, there's 6 major marathons in the world: Boston, New York, Chicago, Berlin, Tokyo, and London. It was always a goal to run one of them. There is a lottery system, so you never know if you're actually going to get picked to get in some of those. And Boston's qualifying time has gotten quicker and quicker, and I'm just, as a really tall dude.
So you have to hit a qualifying time, and then it's also a raffle?
So Not with Boston. You have to hit a qualifying time, and you have to be within that certain time and fast enough to make it. Depending, so a lot of times their qualifying times, you end up having to be 5 minutes faster just because with the amount of people that are hitting it, and their standards are very, very fast. Which at the marathon distance, I am not very, very fast. I'm sufficient. I'm not fast. Yeah. Dusty is more suited because he's shorter and like you said, like at 6'2", after 20 miles, my knees are like on fire. It's just not a good fit for me. I'm more built for the middle distance. So I always wanted to do one of those. So I ended up getting into Chicago in 2016 and knocking that one off my list. And then it just became finding, because of my job and able to travel, finding races that were unique that I could
That's cool
go
too,
and
that
compete.
you can incorporate, especially if you travel as much as you do, finding something to do. So it would be, so if you, I mean, do you know ahead of time when you're traveling?
Generally I do, and
you
can
plan
kind of
it
schedule
out.
it around.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it makes me not feel so boring, because like when I travel for work, everyone thinks it's all exciting. I like go to my meetings and then go back to the hotel.
That's all my brother does.
Order food and watch movies, and that's pretty much it.
My brother Henry used to say that, and I'd be like, well, why don't you go fucking do something? And he's like, I don't know what there's to do. But if you plan to run, at least you'd be interacting with people and you'd have something to do. And,
yeah, and you get a good tour of new places.
Yeah.
I've run San Francisco Rock and Roll Marathon, which I got to run over the Golden Gate Bridge, which was a really unique thing. But yeah, I think I've run everything that I've wanted to run, and now it's become.
So what are the last two?
So the last two.
Will you leave it at last two, or do you think you'll find something else?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask Kellen, for instance, there's a very famous quote in my house that, I've had bad races where I come home and I've been like, that's it. I'm fucking retired from marathon running.
Yeah.
Never doing this shit again. The training took forever. Just not doing it. And now I just get the, yeah. You'll be signed up.
So depending on how you do in these two. So what are they? What are your last two?
So my last two running goals are, I want to break 20 minutes in 5K again. I'm at 2023. I haven't broken 20 minutes since I was in probably middle school. I definitely, it's around, I think it's 6:15 I have to run per mile. And I would like to also, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity, only 2 years ago actually, to run the Fifth Avenue Mile, which is a very competitive mile race in New York City. It just goes down Fifth. And I'm currently a 5-minute and 33-second miler, which is faster than when I was in like 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I did that when I was 36. So I would actually like to get it below 5:30. So my two goals are my mile below 5:30 and to run a 19 something in a 5K.
When are you tackling these? Are you going to try and do it this year? Or at least one of them? Or are you going to do like one at a time?
So the plan, they're very similar trainings because they're shorter distances.
Yeah.
The plan actually was to, I was supposed to, and had gotten into the Boston Marathon 5K. They hold a competitive 5K the Saturday before the marathon. That was going to be my shot there. But COVID took over and started wrecking and wreaking havoc on all of the races that have been pretty much, I had 7 races on the schedule for 2020.
I didn't even think about how that's going to affect it. So how long is that? And we'll just slide over on this stuff for a little bit and then come back. But how is COVID affecting group racing and like that and running?
It's pretty much non-existent now because of COVID.
Yeah.
There's just no way to socially distance and from running the half. I mean, you're tightly packed in there,
especially in the
corrals.
beginning.
Absolutely. So I do believe, in my opinion, I think more of the trail racing will come back first because you do have that ability to kind of space some things out,
everybody out,
and cap the runners. But it's completely wreaking havoc. Just today, Berlin Marathon and New York City Marathon were canceled for 2020, and they're in the fall. So,
and everybody's pushing everything back to 2021 now.
They are.
They're not even really fucking around with the fall because they keep saying stuff's going to come back.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much affected everything.
Everything.
Until like, because I didn't even think of racing because I don't race. But then I talk to people and then I'll be like, well, this is how it affected me. And then they start talking and then you realize how much of a blanket that literally just went over everything.
Absolutely.
And fucked everything up.
Everything.
Absolutely fucked everything up.
And everyone thought that they might be able, everyone's playing guessing games of how to logistically handle it. Boston actually is scheduled for the first weekend in April, or the first Monday in April, or 2 Mondays. I'm sorry, people from Boston get mad at me if I got this wrong, but Patriots Day is in April, and that's when traditionally Boston Marathon's held. They actually postponed it till September, so they did delay it and then canceled it because by the time we got to June, there's still no.
I mean, you would almost have to cancel it because you're like, why would you keep just trying to?
Yeah.
And then if you're taking people's money and then scheduling, and then it's just a nightmare.
And runners are a pretty understanding group because we're generally relaxed, but hardcore competitive runners get a little dicey if you think about it from the standpoint of also if you do not cancel your race ahead of time. Like now, Chicago is not officially canceled. That marathon training has already started. So everyone entered is really working hard and putting in what they need to, and also in the back of their mind saying, am I doing this for nothing, or am I just doing this for my health?
Not exercise. I mean, it's exercise, but it's like when you're training like that, it's a chore.
The exercise portion becomes less as you get further along in the marathon training, because then, especially as you're trying to hit, once you get to complete a marathon, then you're trying to hit time standards. So your training definitely ramps up, and you have to incorporate a lot of cross training, a lot of stuff. It's exhausting, and it's a complete lifestyle change. I mean, I give up alcohol when I train.
And you're going to have to, you're training every day and having to hit, you're basically, so what does it do when you're training for that is you just keep going inch by inch up until that. So then the day of the race, that's when your body would be 100% correct to
that's
run
basically the idea.
That many miles.
That's the idea behind a plan. You generally in a marathon is like a 16-week plan. Now, as you get further along, your body is supposed to peak for that day.
How has training like that dumped into planning out? I mean, if you're doing that much and you're planning out that much, that has to make doing other simple things in your life, like organizing and like work, it would make so much things easier. How has doing that much training dumped over into your personal life where it grew work and things that it completely changed you?
A lot, actually. As you said, you kind of, as those plans are laid out for you, become much more structured during your marathon training. Hey, I can't go out Friday night because Saturday I've got to wake up and I got to put 10 hard working miles in. I'm not going to hang out, guys, and have the extra beer or whatever. You have to kind of adjust. And not only that, but being on a schedule. And I think you talked about it earlier, is just when it becomes part of your routine, there's not really wiggle room. You almost feel like you need to go do it before
That's where
work.
I'm at with hiking now.
Yeah.
And that's why I was telling you, where I get up at 5:15, and for me, I don't have to get up at any specific time. I don't have a boss. Believe me, if I wake up at fucking noon, my day's fucked,
right?
And I could fuck my entire business up. But technically, I don't have to get up. But the fact that I am getting up, and now it's becoming addicting to the point where I went hiking twice today. And I think what's happening is I'm slowly getting ready to start running again. I just know I have to lose a specific amount of weight. I have to get my cardio back. I have to get my lungs back. And I let myself go for too long, and then and you can ask Draws, every time I tried to get back into running, I'd fuck my knee up because I was too heavy to be running, or I would just be like, no, because I'll get that feeling and I'll chase it and be like, no, I'm going to start running, and then blow my back out because my body's not ready. But like now it's like I get up and then I start making coffee, and then she's texting me and I'm excited, and then going twice in a day for me, it, like, now that I'm looking at what I actually did today, that's so bizarre that, like, it's not, but like for what I normally do, like, I was just like, I have an hour, I can get 30 minutes in before Gary gets here. And I texted you and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get a quick hike in. But like, that's where I'm headed towards being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, all right, I want to do a long distance overnight fucking camping trip. And then it's just like, holy shit, dude, I don't know what drives why that becomes so addicting. I don't know if it's the personality that the person carries that they want to just keep doing more, or if it's the feeling you get. Like, I'm so relaxed. I am never relaxed. And the fact that, like, the only other time is if I get high, is I'll just be like, ooh. And then the other night, my buddy's like, are you high? And I go, I stopped talking and moving. Of course I'm high. But like, that's how it is when you get like that runner's high. Like it's, so I don't know if you're chasing that, or I don't know. I told somebody earlier, I'm like, the mountain called me at the beginning of summer, and as stupid as that sounds, it literally was. And then I just kept going and going and going, and now I'm completely obsessed with it.
Yeah, I think yours is more internal, which I think is hard. Like that intrinsic motivation that we all have is just like, hey, I don't care if there's, there's some of us who run is like, I don't care if there's a race or there's a medal. I just enjoy going out and running. And then there's other that are externally motivated, like I want to kick everybody's ass here and continue to push. But it's funny you say that, because it works in the opposite way too. Then as you get excited and kind of get into shape and you become a runner or hiker, then when something does go wrong, it like throws your whole world off. So if you get injured, it becomes like, then it becomes, even as a hardcore runner, you become angry with other people who are running because you can't anymore.
The last 2 times I tried, actually the last 3 times I tried to get in shape, I hurt myself. And then I would so I stopped trying to run, and then I started trying to work out, hurt myself there. Then I just started trying to walk again. And it's just like, I need the release, otherwise I go crazy.
Right.
So it's like at some point I'm just walking. Like I just would go to the Planet Fitness and just get on the treadmill and walk. And I'd be like, it did nothing. And the whole time I'd be like, I just want to fucking run.
Yep.
But this is the first time where I did it correctly, where I just kept telling myself in the back of my head, your weight's still wrong. Your weight is still, even today I was like, I started to pick the pace up a little bit, and I was like, I could probably start running. And then I was like, no, you can't. You're too heavy. You're going to fuck your knees up. Like, you have to wait until you feel light.
Well, I don't know if you should be negative self-talking to yourself, Mike, but
no, I have a problem with that.
I don't think that's a textbook thing for running.
No. I am hard on myself. But I know that I can't do it yet, but I know that I'm working towards it, just for the simple fact that I was talking about doing 30 miles, and then I see what Nat's doing, and that always pushes me, where I'm like, dude, this dude's on his bike for fucking, it's nuts watching his social media.
All the time.
It's nuts.
All the time.
I watched that whole thing start. It was it was 3 of us started mountain biking, and then he would just be gone. And then he would wait for us. Then he wouldn't wait for us. Then he'd be like, hey, I'm not going to wait. And he'd be ahead. And then he'd be like, he would go, and then he would start going without us, because he'd be just riding his bike nonstop.
And the introduction of social media into athletics. I mean, I go for a run on Strava, and I'm like,
I love Strava though.
Put in like 7 miles, I'm great. And then you scroll through and
38,
and Nat has like 65 miles.
Yeah.
I'm like, what, he had time to do that today?
Yeah, and then he's like riding, eating a hot dog, and filming at the same time. I'm like, whatever, man.
Not cool.
Have you seen him lately?
I haven't.
No, I haven't run into him either. I keep trying to get a hold of I mean, it's harder. I look at what I did when I was younger, and I'm glad I did as much as I did with socializing and hanging out, because it's just, everyone's old and has responsibilities, and you can't do anything anymore.
I 100% can concur with that.
So back to kind of like how that started changing your life around. Like, how has it affected you at work? Like, do you feel like you became like more outspoken in an interview, or like I saw like sometimes you do public speaking? Like, did that like pushing yourself and like kind of structuring it and kind of building, and there's like holding yourself to a standard and completing that, has that changed and helped with work?
Yeah, I think it has in small amounts. I know that, we all kind of go through those shifts. I've always been a type A person. I always had the smart ass mouth on me that just, I'm sure people remember that from high school, but I've always just kind of been that way. But it does. It kind of drives me to be more of, I'm blessed enough to run a very large team of people now, about 110 people. So
that's crazy.
It makes you more internally motivated, and also the running kind of drives that consistent message as you're a leader of, hey, no matter what obstacle we're running into, it's just one foot in front of the other. It's the same. You wear the problem down sometimes. You don't have to solve it. You just kind of remain consistent, and you continue to push and push a little at a time.
That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to look at it. What the hell was I going to ask you? with back to your personal goals with those the two ones that you want to finish, what are your plans for those? Are you going to do them this year?
I'm not sure. I'm currently my wife wanted to similar to what you talked about, wanted to run Kellen wanted to run her first marathon, which I never thought ever would be a subject, because the kids joke like, we've seen you come home from races and not be able to move, like that doesn't look fun. But again, for the motivation, I think just seeing it for years and years and the consistency. So that training is very, very different than the two speed goals that I set.
So now will you train with her?
I do.
Yeah. That's got to be nice though, to be able to, because you figure those two goals that you have, not that you won't have anything after you hang that up, but it kind of closes the chapter of running. So then it kind of leaves the book open a little bit more, where you can kind of focus on training and working with her and be like, you know what, let's put this over here and kind of just, move things around. Are the kids into running as well?
So they've mentioned some things. I think my son is a little bit more excited for that kind of future than my daughter. Again, I think, just like anything, they've seen the good and the bad in it. It's hard to tell your kids how much you love a sport when like you have ice on your legs and you can't get up to get a drink. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the challenge, but you're right, man. It's a different thing as you close the book on your goals and you get a chance to coach or do certain things. Watching Gavin and Cassidy run would be amazing as a parent, and just kind of see what they love, and as well as helping Kellen, achieve her goal it's relaxing in a way, because I can still put that in, and it's not me shooting for something specific. So.
With that being said, what are your focuses on moving forward? Do you see yourself writing a book about anything? Do you see yourself working on kind of coaching people, or do you think that you're going to kind of just stay with your family? Like, because once you're, not that you're ever going to be done with running, but there's going to be a point to where you put maybe the competition on hold after those two goals, and then like, how do you fill that void with the world of running? Because I feel like you're in too deep to not be in it. Like, you're a lifer. So
I probably am a lifer.
Where do you see yourself finding ways to still be involved?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a couple of years ago, the Northampton Community College put their cross country program. They had never had one, and I had the ability to coach there as well already. So I got to join someone on his staff as the assistant cross country coach, and it was great, passing on all the knowledge, all of the pros, cons, everything I love about running. Just there's runners always talk about running. I don't know if a book is ever, but I think I have a core group that we're probably lifers, and will just keep pushing and see if we can pass down that knowledge. I would love to for my children, but I would never push them into something that they don't naturally go. That would be so
hard to force somebody to get into running if they weren't into
running. It's like the worst
all.
sport to try and convince someone to run.
How do you like cross country? Do you like coaching that? Like, what? Like, I never did cross country. I think Roger might have. But like, how is cross country broken down? Is it like 4 sections with 4 different runners?
It's so cross country is not. Yeah, that's not like a relay style, I think you were talking about. But no, it's very similar to road racing, except it's all terrain, almost like a hybrid between trail and road running.
So then how? Like, well, I remember like Bonner was on.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
So how is there still multiple people running? Do you just go by multiple times in the group?
It's just a course, same corral type style of a road race, and you just gun goes off and everybody goes.
And then it's just taking the best time off the team, and then that's what the team time is?
The team times are added up depending on finish style and finish number. But I like it, man. It was something to coach, and kind of, it's the basic principle, and the training is very, very similar. You're on the track, you're on the road doing distance stuff, you're doing sprinting, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, coaching was a lot of fun. I think that when you have to coach folks that maybe don't have the same passion as you do, it gets a little bit difficult. I didn't even think of that. Well, the kids are signing up for it. True.
But then I guess if they get into that and they're like, like my buddy's kid signed up for wrestling. And then he thought it was going to be more like WWF.
There you go.
And then like once he got into it, he started going to a couple of things, and then said to his mom like, hey, this isn't what I thought this was at all. So, I mean, I'm sure you get a little bit of that, but I mean, is there kids that you ever had to coach and then saw them transition where they didn't like it and then followed through with it and then were like, yeah, I'm glad I stuck out with it?
Yeah, I actually did have one student there that really struggled with injuries and just really hated, shin splints, just painful stuff, that just hated it. And I think was out there for maybe the wrong reasons. Maybe a parent pushed her into it, and then just watching as we kind of work through those injuries and scaled it up a little bit, and then found that joy again that I think was missing. But I think you referenced before. I mean, can you remember us when we were in high school? Like, as you go back as an adult and you start coaching these kids and you're like, man, was I like this? Like, they don't want to do what you want them to do. And a lot of them are trying to please somebody else rather than for the love of the sport.
I was involved. I think I played baseball. I played football. And I think those were the two majors. But it wasn't that I disliked the sports. It was just kind of how the teams ran. But I just remember being like miserable going to like baseball practice. Sometimes I enjoyed it when there was a team that I was on that was super competitive, and it was the older kids, and that was like super serious. If you lost, the coach is throwing fucking hats and yelling. Then Dan Repsher's dad was the first coach I had where he was like, we just want to have fun. And like we had nicknames. We were like the fucking Bad News Bears. Like we lost to the worst team, but I had the most fun.
Right.
And it's just like it's kind of finding a thin line between enjoying it and being forced to do it with a fucking crazy competitive fucking coach.
Absolutely.
Do you ever think that you come down too hard on the kids and get too competitive, or are you able to kind of like keep that shit under wraps?
I'm not. Sometimes I am not. Sometimes I think I do kind of envision and just kind of what I referenced before. It's tough, right? You know, there's been a lot of that Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. That he was kind of an asshole. But
did you like it?
I did like it. And
I don't like basketball, and that was my favorite documentary.
Yeah,
ever.
I think it's terrific. And the inside look, like I always knew that he had a reputation of kind of being an ass, but on the same level, you can respect what he was trying to do. You raise everybody's level if you're there to win and create a mentality of excellence and winning. You have to push sometimes, and that's really whether you run a business. Sometimes when you have people under you, have to push them to do the not easy thing or not take the easy way out. And I think that a lot of times people that have that personality get that bad rap of you're kind of being a jerk, but it's really for the good of the team or the good of the potential of the person.
I couldn't find a better way to close out on that, and it's the whole reason I brought you on here is and I got out what I wanted to get out of this interview was like you push yourself nonstop. Like you push yourself so much that it pushes me to do more. And then I got inspired by watching all of your running and being like, I need to get back into running. And I think it's important to push people. And and like I said, it was the main reason I brought you on. I feel like you hold yourself to a standard, and I feel like you push yourself to get there. And I remember one time I was telling somebody all the things I was going to do with this business and all the things. And they're like, man, you have some like pretty high hopes and some pretty high goals. And I'm like, even if I get halfway to that fucking goal, it's still 10 times farther than I would have gotten by not pushing myself at all. And that's kind of the message I wanted to drive home on this. And I feel like you hit it on the top of the head at the end there. It's just, you have to push yourself. And you can push other people, and there's nothing better than pushing somebody and then seeing them grow. And I feel like you probably do that a lot, and it's not noticed through other people. But I think that it's important to let you know that it affected me. I definitely, watching your stuff has pushed me to get to different physical stuff. And like, it's funny. I was telling Draws, we were on a camping trip, and we were drinking and shit, and we were swimming across the water, and she's like, and Dusty's like, yo, you two idiots aren't gonna make it, and we're wearing life rafts. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And he's just like, are you sure? And we're like, you could leave us on the jet ski. So we start swimming, and I go to Draws, I go, I'm gonna be the Gary Collina of swimming. And we started trying to go. We made it 10 minutes. We were no longer on a course to correction. We are now going down the river. We are half drunk, and Dusty had to pick us up on the jet ski.
That is a perfect story. But to your point, man, yeah, it's. I mean, I appreciate that. If like you said, if I never do anything other than, you know, in running, and never amounts to anything else but a personal thing, if you can get one person to just be like, hey, I want to try something new, or I want to push myself to be, you know, a little bit better or get in shape, I mean, that's all that's worth it to me. Those are my it's funny that you ask, like, some of those things, like, that I never thought would come out of my competitive nature. Those running with my wife, running with the kids, those are my favorite memories.
Working with the student who had the injury
those
problems.
are my memories of running with Draws and Chris, you know, in Jacobsburg, those times where you spend close, or even trying to push myself to catch Dusty, which is fucking impossiple.
He's a psycho, man.
just impossible. Those are my fondest memories of running. It's not the giant races or there's part of that is a piece of that, but that's not the whole piece. I truly want to drive the family, my friends, everybody to just kind of embrace the change of pushing yourself and not getting in your own head and saying, hey, I there's no way I could do this. You know, we joked all the time running that 50K. Draws and I questioned it several times, like, is this even possible for us to do? Like, or is this just stupid? But just finding that extra gear and saying, you know what, it is possible, and it's gonna suck, and I'm gonna have to make sacrifices, but at the end, if it's worth it to me, that's where I have to be. And that's probably why Brant calls me Tony Robbins.
Well, I think a lot of that shows in your social media, and if anybody wants to give you a follow or to kind of find more information from you about running, or if they have any questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Through your Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram, it's the Garathon.
Cool.
And that's the _ Garathon. But yeah, any questions, open to it all. Had an opportunity to do a Runner's World article a couple years ago about same thing, like pushing people, wishing them luck when you're in that situation. But yeah, it's just open book when it comes to running. It's truly my passion. If you and I didn't have a time limit, we could probably talk about running for the next 3 days.
Well, I want to have you back on, and I either want to do some sort of running thing, or I'll bring you back on after I do like the 30 mile, and then we can like go over the hike and kind of talk about that too, because I know you've done that long distance. But I'll bring you back on, and maybe I'll grab a motto or see if Katie wants to come on.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. Oh, I don't know. Katie's pretty tough to get a hold of. I hear.
I don't know if she'll come on camera. I don't know. I got her to maybe do a Fast and Furious podcast with me, where we just talk about the movies. But I'll see if I can make it happen.
And yes, Katie, that was a shot. in case you were wondering.
If anybody else wants to check out, if you're a new listener, you can subscribe to the YouTube. You can check out the website at neveragainstudio.com, and that has all my clothing and everything's on there. All the audio, the video, everything that I do is on neveragainstudio.com, and you can subscribe to all that. See how I don't know how to end these?
Perfect. That is perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.